Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Now, a few weeks ago, you may or may not remember that Moza Racing sent me some goodies to try out and test. Namely, their direct drive, wheelbase, steering wheel, pedals, dashboard, loads of fancy stuff. Now, there was a bit of a technical issue. The steering wheel kept disconnecting from the base for whatever reason. No matter what I tried, I couldn't get it to stay connected. I tried to update the firmware, tried to update the software. I reached out to Moza, explained what was happening, and they said, right, Dave, something's not right. We'll send you another wheelbase and steering wheel. So they did that, and I can report that everything's working as it should be. So this is what we're going to test today. So we're going to test out the R16 wheelbase. We're going to test out the steering wheel on the left-hand side. That's the RS steering wheel. We're going to test out these CRP pedals. If you watched my unboxing, you might remember that they didn't send me the pedal plate there, but I've got that now. And I've got to say, that's the best designed pedal plate I've ever come across. I'll talk more about that later on. They sent me the dashboard. What else? And a mount to mount the steering wheel base to an aluminium profile rig, which I've not used. Now, I've been testing these thoroughly for a couple of days now. That's why there's not been much content on the channel, and they've been on the other rig. Now, I will say from the off that this is not a review. This is not a review. I'm looking at these products as a sim racer, just like you. So I'm not going to be tearing them to pieces. All I'm bothered about is really, what does it look like? How does it feel? And is it worth the money? And you're going to get my honest opinion. So there are some things that I really like, and there are some things that I'm not keen on at all. And I will go over them as we go through the video. Right, enough waffling on. Let's jump over to the other rig. So before we get cracking, I'll show you the software that you get with the wheel. So this is the Moza Pit House. It's actually not a bad piece of software, and there's lots and lots on here. But there are a couple of issues. So here's the main screen. You can see you've got the steering wheel there. At the bottom, you can set the steering angle real quick. I do like that. I have mine on 900. You can see in the top right, we've got the wheelbase. You can set the output of the steering wheel base itself. Then you can see in the bottom right, I've actually got the pedals installed, which seem actually really nice, but we'll go into that a little bit later on. So next down we've got, I'll leave this one to last, that's where my issue is. So here we can adjust the colour of the LEDs on the steering wheel itself just by dragging these colours on there like so. You can just change the colours quite easily. And I don't know what this is. Down paddle mode, keystrokes, synthetic independent. I've no idea what that is. I have absolutely no idea. Then we've got the pedals here, so you can set your dead zones, which I've already done. Dead straightforward. And then here we've got the dash. So there's quite a few to choose from. I'm not keen on that one. I actually quite like that one, I think. And it gives you your pedal inputs on there as well. I have noticed that this doesn't work on iRacing though, but it does work on ACC. And then we've got the updater here, so we can check if there's any updates. There shouldn't be, because we've updated them all. And then here it tells you your version. So we'll go back to this one here. This is where my issue is. Now, there's lots and lots of things you can change on here. However, I don't speak Chinese, so this is a problem for me. Those guys that live in China or speak Chinese, it won't be an issue. But for example, this slider here, I've no idea what it does because it's in Chinese. Obviously, if you hover over it, it should tell you a little bit more about the setting. But again, even the steering angle one there that's been translated, the actual description is in Chinese. And the same story over on this side here. So that needs a little bit of work. Go to advanced settings. Again, more of the same. So there's lots and lots of things that you can change. And this here, I don't know what's going on here. This little graph slider thing, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't think this is the best way of doing it. 160 kilometers riding on a curb. I mean, what's that about? 80 kilometers riding on grass and sand. That's just bizarre for me. That's bizarre. So that's the software. Those are my gripes. It's basically in the second setting down where you've got all the settings in Chinese. Doesn't really make sense on this bit here. A bit bizarre, really. So this is the wheel all set up. What do I think about the steering wheel first of all? Well, this is the second unit that I've had. They sent me a new steering wheel and a new wheelbase. The steering wheel actually feels really nice. It's a good size. The actual girth of the wheel rim itself is actually quite nice. I like it. I really like it. Again, I mentioned in the unboxing on the steering wheel itself, it's got some printed words like camera, reverse, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of that. Paddles feel really good. I do like them a lot. The dual clutch paddles feel nice as well. So steering wheel is great, and I'm a big fan of this quick release that's on here. Is it the NRG quick release? It was on the AccuForce that I had. I really like the quick release, and you can see the wheel moving a bit there. The actual quick release doesn't budge at all. So steering wheel, I like it. I'm just not a fan of the front face, to be honest. Now you can see here that we've got the wheelbase attached to the rock solid rig, so I didn't need to drill any holes. The holes that were pre-drilled there fit no problem, and I've put the dashboard on there, but you'll see in iRacing this doesn't do a thing. Absolutely diddly squat, right? Absolutely nothing. So I'll give you a look at my force feedback settings right now. So we have set it to 16 Newton meters, the wheel force, and we've got the strength to 8.3, and that's 41 Newton meters. I'll probably adjust that as we go around the track. And I've picked Sebring because it's one of the bumpiest circuits on iRacing. So the force feedback is actually really, really strong. From the time that I've spent with this wheelbase, it's really strong, and it's actually really good. I like it a lot. It's probably, you know, the detail isn't any worse than any other force feedback wheelbase that I've used. Feels absolutely fine. All the details there, as I'm driving up the circuit now, I can feel all the little ripples in the road surface, and there's much more strength here than what I would actually use. I would never run my wheelbase on what this can run to, and this is only 16 Newton meters. So it's on 8.3 now. Well, let's just turn that up a bit there now. And that's really heavy now. And that's on 10.8. It's not clear. It's like just jumping into the orange slightly now and again. In the top right, you can see the force feedback meter. You can see it there, and that's fine. I would run my force feedback there, no problem. Let's just pop it up a bit more, see if it clips. Yeah, a bit more there now, I think. Yeah, a bit more. But that's that's really heavy. So turn that down, because that's just being silly. So what were we on before? So we'll leave it on about 8.8. That's a comfortable number for me. So there's not a lot to say about the force feedback other than it feels really good. It feels really good. The motor on the wheelbase is really, really small. I mentioned that on the unboxing, but obviously it's 16 Newton meters. It doesn't need to be huge. Oh, that's off. Steady on, Davy boy. But I've probably done about 20 laps around Sebring today. Maybe more, maybe 30 laps actually. Just getting used to the size of the steering wheel itself. That's what I've had most difficulty with, is the size of the rim and it being a round circular rim rather than a formula rim that I'm used to. And I got close to the times I was doing in a league race on my rig. That was with this wheelbase and the pedals that Moza sent me. But it did take quite a bit of getting used to. I'll talk about the pedals in a little while. You can see, I like my force feedback quite strong. And this doesn't disappoint. There's loads of detail and it gives your arms a bit of a knock when you go over the bumps. You can see there. But I like it. So force feedback, good. Really, really good. Steering wheel, not a fan of this. Carry on. The printed front design, and it looks a little bit too glitzy for me. You know, a little bit too toyish, if that's a word. If that's a good way to describe it. You know, makes it look more of a toy with all of this going on. And yes, I suppose it is a toy. It's to play video games, essentially. You know, but you know, we're enthusiasts and we're trying to simulate driving a real car. So I want for me anyway, it's subjective. I know it's subjective. You know, this might be, other people might enjoy this kind of thing. But for me, I like things to be a little bit more subtle, a little bit more realistic, or as close to realism as I can get them. But there's not a lot else to say about the force feedback other than it's really strong, really detailed. Could probably be made a little bit better by tweaking the software, if only I knew what it meant. So we've jumped into ACC because I want to show you the screen now. I think it's an absolutely incredible idea to integrate the screen into the wheelbase, get all the power from there, all of the information. The only problem I've got with it, with the rig that I've got now, I can't move my monitor back anymore. And I can't move the wheel deck this way. It's fixed. And that's just the way I've got things set up. That's just how it is. So because of that, I've got to have my wheelbase a lot lower than I normally would. I would normally have my monitor, if I could, right on top of the wheelbase, or if I had this screen, I would try and have my monitor right behind it. So this screen would be in front of the bottom of my monitor. But that's just this rig. Not everybody's rig is going to be the same. So you can see, as I'm pressing the accelerator there, I don't know if you can see on there, it's got my pedal inputs there for my accelerator and brake. Really smooth, really nicely animated. The Rev Counter worked perfectly. Obviously on the steering wheel now on a Assetto Corsa, we can see it actually red lines, and that moves dependent on where we are in the rev range, which is nice. It wasn't doing that on iRacing. So on this particular dash, we've got the pedal inputs, we've got the fuel, we've got the position, we've got the lap time, we've got the best lap, last lap, estimated lap time, the gap, we've got the tyres, and we've got the rev counter, gear and speed. So all the information that you would need in a race right there on that dash. And this is probably my favourite dash, I think. I haven't cycled through them all for a little while. This is probably my favourite. As you can see there, everything works as it should. just want to see what it does when it redlines. I've not paid attention to the actual dash. Ah, so it flashes. The steering wheel flashes before the dashboard does anything. But yeah, there's nothing more to say about that. It's a dashboard that works really well. Nicely integrated. Just doesn't work on my setup that I've got this wheelbase mounted to. If you had an aluminium profile rig where you could move the wheelbase or the wheel deck, sorry, or the monitors back and forward, then it would work absolutely fine. So before I take the pedals for a drive, I just want to take a moment to talk about the pedal plate. And I've had quite a few sets of pedals over the years, and this is probably going to be the best designed pedal plate that I've ever seen. You don't need any nuts at all. Everything's pre-drilled and tapped, and it comes to pieces. It's 4 sections. There's the 2 side pieces underneath which mount to your rig, and then you can take the top plate off. There's a small piece that goes across to stop your heels going too far forward, and everything is drilled and tapped, so there's no need for any nuts. So you don't need to get your hands underneath the rig to try and attach a nut. This just makes the process absolutely simple. Really, really well designed. The pedals for a drive. I've showed you how they all mount to the base plate. Really nice. It actually looks like a really nice little pedal unit, this, when everything's bolted together. Really nice and tidy. Feel of the pedals actually feels quite nice. You can see on the brake pedal there that there is a spring that takes up the slack initially, and then it pushes on the pedal rubber, which is at the right at the back next to the load cell. Now I did change this out for a stiffer one, and you've actually got to take the load cell off the back, and the wiring underneath, it's very flimsy. I wouldn't want to do that too many times, and I did think about changing the spring, but it looked like a real pain in the backside. I thought, well, I'll just play things safe and not bother. So that spring just takes up the initial slack, and then you've got lots and lots of pressure, or you can apply lots and lots of pressure to the brake pedal. Clutch is like super light, like really, really light. I suppose that's what you want. It doesn't feel like there is a bit of a dual stage there. You can just feel it move there, but it's super light. So that spring could probably do being changed out or adjust in the back somehow to make it a little bit stiffer. But we don't use the clutch much, and that's fine. And the accelerator pedal, nice and smooth. I wasn't a fan of this big long foot plate, but actually it makes heel and toeing an absolute breeze. You can just kick it with your heel. So that's one of the benefits of a longer foot plate, but it's actually really smooth. Feels really nice indeed. So let's take it for a drive. So same track. Sebring. So I don't know what force we can apply to the brake. I really don't know what force we can apply, because the instructions and what have you aren't the best, and I've tried to search on the internet about the strength of the load cell, and I've failed miserably to try and find out what it is. But I can push on this as hard as I can pretty much, and I'm not really maxing out where the brake can go. I can push down a lot harder than I'd be comfortable with. So I've actually got these set up pretty, well, not soft, but probably softer than I would have. The first 70% or so of the brake, or 60-70%, is taken up with the spring, and then the remainder is taken up with the rubber stop, which I actually quite like, because you're not really going to lock it up when you're just into the first part of the coal tyres. You're not going to lock it up when you're braking where the spring is controlling the pressure. You don't get to the rubber stop until you've compressed the spring completely. But throttle feels really nice, feels nice and smooth. Like I mentioned, I wasn't a fan of the long accelerator pedal to start with. But the more I've driven it, the more I've got used to it. It's actually fine. It doesn't really matter. I'd be happy using a accelerator pedal like that. Brakes wise, like I mentioned earlier on, I've done probably 20-30 laps here, and it feels fine. It's quite easy to trail brake to modulate the pressure. It's not sticking. There doesn't seem to be any flex. I'll watch this video back and see if there is any, but there doesn't seem to be any flex at all that I can see or feel, sorry. Like I mentioned, the clutch is really light though. I would have, and that does seem to stick, not stick, but it doesn't, you know, spring back as quickly as I would like it to. Kind of gets stuck under my foot, you know, that not really a fan of the clutch. But I don't use the clutch that much, so it's not really an issue. So I'm coming off using the Heusinkveld Ultimate pedals, so I've got to keep that in mind, and those pedals are twice the price of these. But I have tried, and I have used the Fanatec V3s, and I've owned a few sets of the Fanatec CSL Elite with load cell, so I'm kind of trying to compare it to those really, and the Heusinkveld Sprints which I've owned. Because the Sprints are probably going to be similar. I think these are about 550 quid, a little bit less. So we've got to bear that in mind, or I've got to bear that in mind when I'm testing them here right now. I can't test them like for like with the Ultimates because they're twice the price. But actually, a combination of the pedals and the steering wheel, it's actually pretty good. I'm just driving really badly here, but you can. It's so the brake is really light in the first part. You don't really have to apply much pressure at all, which will be great for trail braking. You can just apply it nice and lightly. Just there's hardly any pressure there. It's really easy to modulate the pressure on the brake. And I wasn't very keen on the pedals when I first saw them. You know, when you look underneath them you think, blimey, there's nothing there. But rightly somebody in the comments of that video says, well, what do you expect to be there? And there's nothing to be there really, you know. There isn't this. It's all in the spring and the rubber bushing at the back and the load cell. That's where all the magic happens. The rest of it is just cosmetic, really. Yeah, that slide there. Sorry, just go back to the wheel. I could feel that slide really early on the wheel there. But the pedals feel really nice, much better than I thought they were going to be, to be fair. I don't know which my pit limiter is. There we go. Pedals feel pretty darn good, I must say. Which is not what I expected to say. Throttle feels really nice. Brake is nice and progressive. It's a little bit spongy when you compress this spring, and it would be spongy because we're pressing against a rubber bush like, you know, you have on the hoisting valve pedals. So it's just one rubber bush and you're just compressing it, and that lays flat. So you're pressing this and you can just see the orange bush at the back, or the rubber bush, that's being compressed and moved at the back and pushing on the load cell on the back of the pedal. Clutch, too light for me. I would have to try and make some adjustments to that to make it a little bit stiffer. But the way that the pedals are constructed with the base plate, which was really easy to mount, just 4 bolts. I just drilled 4 holes in this wooden frame that I've got here. Drilled 4 holes, really easy to mount. I'm impressed with those. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we've done quite a bit of testing over the last few days with the Moza steering wheel base and pedals. Most of those have been done on iRacing, which is my sim of choice, and it feels absolutely fine. The wheel and pedal combination, I like it. It's good. I've tried it on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Likewise, everything works as it should. I've tried it on Euro Truck Simulator. Everything works as it should. And I've also tried it on Dirt Rally. However, I couldn't get the force feedback to work on Dirt Rally for whatever reason. Everything else worked. There was just no force feedback. So I don't know if that's going to be fixed at some point moving forward in the software, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't work. So let's talk about what I like and what I don't like. So we'll talk about the steering wheel first of all. So what do I like about it? Well, I like the quick release. I've used that quick release on other wheelbases previously. I like the size of the wheel rim. I like the thickness of the actual rim itself. I like the paddles. The paddles feel incredible. The dual clutch feels good, but I don't like how it looks. I don't like the front of the wheel at all. I don't like the colours. I don't like the printed words. It could be designed a little bit better. The buttons felt a little bit cheap after testing it for a while. Compared to my other wheel rims, they did feel a little bit cheap. And the rotary encoders, there did seem to be a slight amount of play on those when you weren't moving them. And that's no biggie. But when you're paying premium prices for products, then you expect them to be bang on. So the way it's constructed, I really like it. I just don't like the way it's presented. So now onto the dashboard. I think that's a really good idea. I like the way it's integrated into the wheelbase. I like the way it mounts with just 2 screws on either side, 1 connector on one side. Really easy. Plenty of dashboards to choose from. Unfortunately, it wouldn't work in iRacing for whatever reason, but it worked in ACC, no problems. I couldn't use it as I would normally use it. I couldn't have the monitor where I would normally have it with the dashboard on, which was unfortunate. If I was on an aluminium profile rig, then you've got that adjustability, which I didn't have. But dashboard, I think is a brilliant idea. Now onto the wheelbase. This is going to divide opinion very much, I would guess. Some people like the design, some people don't. I'm in the like it camp. There's no reason why manufacturers can't make their wheelbases look really nice, add a bit of colour, which Moza have done. Yes, it's not going to be to everybody's taste, but I quite like it. As far as feel goes from the force feedback, like I mentioned, it doesn't feel any worse than any direct drive wheelbase that I've used previously. It's direct drive. You know what you're going to get with direct drive. The software needs a bit of work. I didn't know what settings did what because all of the instructions, or a lot of the instructions, were in Chinese. And the way that they explained it with those percentages at speed on grass and on sand, not the best ways to do it. So that definitely needs a bit of work. But the actual force feedback, plenty strong enough from the 16 Newton meter base. Like I mentioned in the video, I wouldn't run that anywhere near 100%. So as far as force feedback feel goes, brilliant. Strength, brilliant. I like the looks of it. It's only a small motor, so that's got a thumbs up. Onto the pedals. When I first unboxed them, I wasn't a fan of the pedals at all. I thought they looked a little bit cheap. But when you pair it with the pedal plate, they look like a really nice, tidy set of pedals. Nice and modern, nicely designed. Colours are right. They look good. Throttle, nice and smooth. The longer pedal took a bit of getting used to, but they felt nice and smooth. Brake, again, similarly, just took a bit of getting used to. I'm not used to the spring or that initial pressure being so soft, but once I got used to it, it was fine. I was able to modulate the brake pressure. No worries. There's plenty of pressure to be had on the brake pedal. I wouldn't run that anywhere near as hard as I could have pushed it before I got to 100%. And the clutch, dead light. I would need to fine tune that and adjust it to suit me, but I don't use the clutch that much. And lastly, there was the mount that we didn't actually use, but that's really straightforward to use. You just mount that to your wheelbase and then mount the plate to your aluminium profile. Dead easy. Great idea actually, but I didn't actually get to use that. So let's talk about pricing. Well, let's have a look. So we're going to have a look at the wheelbase first of all. So where's learn more? Let's have a look at prices right now. If we click buy now. So the wheelbase is £999. So that's, it seems expensive. It's kind of, it's VRS Direct Force Pro kind of money. Yes, this is designed a bit different. It's a bit weaker. It's not as strong as a VRS. But it's in that kind of money, and for maybe £100 more, you could get a SimiCube 2 Sport. So, is the aesthetics worth the money? So let's have a look at the steering wheel now. So, from Moza, the price for this one here is £539. For me, I wouldn't pay that for that wheel rim. That's just not suited to my taste, unfortunately. I really like the way it's constructed, although there was a bit of flex at the top, but you wouldn't be holding the wheel rim there in any case. The way it's constructed is fine. I just don't like the way it's presented, as I mentioned earlier on. So for me, 539 quid seems a lot of money, although it is a wireless wheel rim. I would like to see what Moza come up with moving forward. See if they come out with a formula style rim. And finally, on to the pedals. So let's have a look, see what these retail for. So £539, exactly the same as what the wheel rim goes for. Now, to put it in context, a set of Fanatec V3s from Fanatec, I think they cost €370. What's that in pounds? Maybe 340 quid, something like that. A set of Hoisingveld Sprint 2-pedal set is about £550, and a 3-pedal set, I think, is about £650. Well, having owned the Hoisingveld Sprints, I would rather have those than these Moza pedals. And even the V3s, these didn't feel any better than the Fanatec V3s in my opinion, and the Fanatec V3s are nearly £200 cheaper. So we've looked at the products, and the products are actually really good. The wheelbase is good, steering wheel's fine apart from the looks, pedals feel fine, dashboard good. Everything is positive apart from the price. I think they're going to price themselves out of the market. And I think if they leave the pricing as it is, I don't think they're going to shift that many units. I think the wheelbase needs to come down at least a couple of £100. I think the steering wheel wants to be around about 350, and the pedals probably about the same, 350, 400. You're competing with the likes of Fanatec with their proven background. And as a new company, I think you need to get your foot in the door somehow before you start charging the big bucks. So products good, pricing needs some work. There we go. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember, leave a like, subscribe and all the rest of it. Thanks for watching. See you later. Cheers.